So I guess we could jump into the next story. Rumor alert, guys. Rumor alert. So don't take this as fact, but this is something that's being claimed around. So Nintendo will launch a new Switch hardware model early next year, a report citing manufacturing sources has claimed. Taipei-based newspaper Economic Daily News claimed on Tuesday that a new Switch would enter production later this year, with a launch planned on Q1 2021, which is very soon. According to the publication, the new Switch model will feature upgraded interactivity and improved display quality. And now with the improved display quality, the rumor is that where they completely lose me is that it can support 4K graphics. Which, yeah, okay. So a couple things to unpack here. First off, this is not the first time we've heard this rumor, obviously. When the Switch launched back in 2017, within a year of it launching, we started hearing about a Switch Mini version, a Switch Lite version, and a Switch Pro version. We had heard about that relatively early. Fast forward to now, we have gotten the Lite version. That's out. It's doing its thing. People like it. The Pro version, nowhere on the horizon. About a year ago, there was, when the story was circulating around, they had a shareholders meeting, and they were like, as far as this next fiscal year is concerned, we are not launching any new hardware outside the Lite. So that kind of deaded that, and now here we go again, Q1 2021. I don't know if this is I don't think this is the launch of a new fiscal year. So it's interesting that it would fall there, but they're saying that a Pro version, I guess, is going to launch around, I would imagine, the same date that the initial console launched, 4 years earlier. So that's kind of interesting. It would kind of be like its 4-year anniversary with a new console. I keep my eyes out a lot on handheld and screen tech specifically, and what certain tablets are capable of, what NVIDIA's doing with its graphics and stuff like that. Where the technology is at. And again, I'm saying this as kind of like an outsider, a layman. I'm not a tech expert or anything like that, but I keep my eyes on what seems to be possible. And 4K displays are obviously possible. Absolutely. 4K displays with controllers on the side running games natively on there, no cloud, no nothing, for $300 doesn't exist. Not a thing, as far as I'm concerned. Now, I think it's important to make the distinction. Are they talking 4K screen on the device itself or 4K up-res when it's docked? That is the distinction. If it can do 1080p native on the screen and 4K upscaling with a dock, maybe we could have it. But 4K seems a bit much, because 4K, that would mean essentially that Nintendo is joining everybody else in where the tech is right now, which is not something we ever really see. I mean, they kind of work on a lag in terms of tech. And the Switch, though it runs at 1080, and you could say, oh, that's old tech and stuff like that, it's 1080 handheld. So for the most part, as of 2017, that was the best they could probably do in terms of having a reasonable battery life and a good screen. Fast forward, 4 years, maybe they can get that 1080p native on the screen with a decent battery life. But 4K, there's not a chance in hell. Are you buying this rumor?
No, I mean, there is going to be another Switch, a Pro, a Plus, whatever they ended up calling. Because obviously we saw with the DS family and the 3DS family specifically, they love to just make different iterations constantly, because they're not going to try to relaunch like a Switch. They're not going to try to do a Switch 2 yet. I believed it a little bit when I started looking at not accessories wise, but like software wise. They don't have anything right now really planned to come out. We haven't had a Nintendo Direct, a formal Direct, like a first party Direct, and I think we've hit a year now. We have these small indie ones, so I'm like, maybe they're trying to save some of these games for the stronger Switch, but then you start dividing your fan base, and I'm like, no. As soon as I heard the 4K rumor, I try not to laugh just now, but yeah, it's hilarious. There's no way, under no circumstances, Nintendo doing a 4. I don't even believe if they're like, oh, docked, it will upscale it to 4K. No, it won't. No, it won't. No, you won't, because you're not going to charge the price you need to charge for that. And I mean, let's be honest, some games when you dock it, it doesn't even get to 1080p on the TV. Depending on the game and developer, and I know all that stuff, but you guys can't even get it to upscale to 1080p correctly. You're gonna tell me you can now have it 1080p on the handheld and can upscale it to 4K? No, you can't. Xbox and PlayStation could barely do that at the beginning of this generation. Remember, Microsoft's games were at launch were like 900p or whatever, 920.
Yeah, 900, yeah.
And even though we're not like, super into, I'm more, if the game runs well, looks well, That's really what I care about. But I'm thinking if the two giants couldn't do it for the price they were charging for those systems, you're telling me Nintendo's going to do it for $300 for I don't see them launching a $400 Switch at the minimum to get to these aspects, to get to these ratios, and get to these graphical capabilities. I just don't believe it. I mean, I don't get me wrong. I would love a stronger Switch. I waited on a long time before I got the Red Box Switch, which is slightly stronger, it's more just a better battery life. I just don't see like how much of an upgrade you're gonna do, because they always like to make incentives for people to go from the Switch now to buy another Switch. It looks good for numbers and stuff like that. But you gotta pick and choose your battles, because you're not gonna be able to ramp up people to get your 4K system when it's either gonna be super expensive or it's gonna be tongue-in-cheek lies where it's not gonna be truly 4K.
Yeah, the way I look at this is, some people are, I guess, looking at this as like the DS to the 3DS jump or something like that, when I think this is going to be obviously closer to DS to DSi, if anything. Small tech adjustments, small, like the hardware is going to change a little bit, the screen might get a little better. Maybe, if anything, they're going to try to fix the battery life a little bit better to prepare it to compete. Because again, they're aware of the fact that PS5 is coming out, Series X is coming out, 4K is going to become more standard, and the discrepancy and gap between them and their competition. I know people are like, Nintendo's not competing with Sony and Xbox, but in the game industry generally, as the three major guys, they are in some capacity. So they don't want that gap to get too big. Now, yes, they make it clear that Nintendo is not interested in playing that kind of tech back and forth, who can get the strongest, particle effects. They're not interested in playing that game. They've expressed that many times. However, 720 to 1080, that's okay. 720 to 1440p, okay. It's getting a little wide, but if you're still running things at 720 and the biggest publishers are dropping their games at 4K 120 or 4K 60, then it's going to become a lot harder for these developers to be able to have their games everywhere. And I kind of look at The Witcher, for example, which is a very demanding game, but they really had to like cramp that game in to get it to work on Switch. And that came out in what, like 2015 or something like that?
I believe so, yeah. And
so fast forward to 2021, when these Cyberpunk's coming out and all these crazy strong games, having a Switch SKU at all is going to be a lot more, a lot tougher. And again, Nintendo thrives when the first party's strong and the third party's strong. And third party is not just indie devs.
No.
And it's not just EA with a couple sports games. They want everything. And so Nintendo's aware of that, and I know they're going to try to remain competitive as much as possible. So I'm sure some kind of tech upgrades coming. Q1 2021 is a little steep. We're heading into Q4, I believe.
Yeah.
No. Yeah. We're heading into the latter half. We're headed into the latter half of 2020 right now, and that you're telling me they're launching new hardware like this into 2021 at the top of the year. I don't know. It seems a little early, because then that means manufacturer is going to probably start in October.
You would have to.
Which means that soon hardware is going to start leaking one way or another. I mean, we start seeing these for any console launch. Mm-hmm. So, as I said on the news, one way or another, in a month or two, we're going to start finding out if this is legit or not. Because if we hit November and we're not seeing anything regarding this piece of hardware, it ain't launching anytime soon then. Yeah, and I'm not saying nothing launches from Nintendo in 2021, but I'm saying this Q1, that means they need to start pulling some triggers soon in terms of marketing and stuff like that. Not to mention, they're going to be competing for the same chipsets as Sony, Microsoft, Apple, all these companies that are competing for hardware. They're going to be jumping into that soon too. So there's a lot of moving parts to pay attention to with this story, that I would not say by any means that it's a lie or that it's untrue, but I think that right now there's way too many variables for me to just buy into it as they're presenting it.
No, absolutely. And you made like two really good points. Was obviously the manufacturing part, because again, nothing's leaked. The Switch Lite was leaking right after its official announcement, I want to say.
Around there.
There's photos, or it was slightly before. But the other big one is, third party. Like I was saying, Nintendo does not have much first party. Again, announced. I know they got like Pikmin 3 Deluxe or whatever, and the rumored, collections and stuff that are coming. But again, we have no confirmation. We have no leaks of that. Again, those are mainly rumors. Well, Pikmin was announced, but like the Mario 35th anniversary thing, completely rumored, nothing leaked. And so they're starting to really rely on third party right now. And these developers are going to get tired of making it to the super bottom line. Like, obviously, when you're making a game and they scale it on PC and these other systems, they work up. To having to do that giant jump from 720, let's say P, to jumping that to the 4K versions, they're going to get tired of that, and they have to start seeing the payoff. Because, I mean, look at, like, if you were waiting for Doom Eternal on Switch, that game was supposed to have been, it was supposed to be out by now.
That hasn't happened
and
yet.
that has not happened. They do
Wow.
not discuss it. And again, though Doom 2016 looked okay on Switch, that was also Doom 2016. Look at for when it released, and like you said, for Witcher, The Witcher it plays fine on Switch. It looks like a PS2 game. I don't care what anyone tells me. It's a slightly better PS2, like super early PlayStation 3 looking game on Switch, and draw distance looks really bad, lots of fog all the time. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's impressive that it runs there, but like you were saying, you're not getting Cyberpunk on Switch, and I would be completely flabbergasted if I saw that, because they're talking about having issues running it on PS4 Pros and Xbox One X's and S's, and though we do need an upgraded Switch, if it's not enough of an upgrade, like you're saying, the DS to the DSi was not like this giant graphical upgrade. The 3DS to the new 3DS, besides like 3 games, really wasn't anything. Like, it made some of your older games, I know like Smash Brothers on DS played a little bit better when you got the new 3DS.
Xenoblade or something like that.
Xenoblade and Minecraft, I think, were exclusive that they needed to have the new 3DS. Well, I know Minecraft was. And yeah, Xenoblade I think was too, that if you didn't have the new one, it told you not. You weren't going to play it. And they have to be careful because you don't want to start doing that. You can't release the new Mario and be like, well, if you don't have the new Switch, you can't play Mario, because you're not gonna hear the end of it. Nintendo gets a lot of passes. You're not gonna get the pass on that. Absolutely not.